Good afternoon, everybody. It is Paul Zeise. We are moving right along here. And of course, we are doing the big show. The big show comes at you every day. Today, a little bit later than normal. That's okay because the big show always delivers, and we try and make sure that we deliver what we need to deliver when it comes to discussions about the Steelers, the Pirates, the Penguins, whatever. And of course, that is always the goal. And so for us, we are here and basically we are going to talk a little bit about the Steelers tonight, a little bit about the Penguins, a little bit about everybody else. And if we do that, then we are going to move on, talk a little bit about the Pirates, which, by the way, we are in a place now where, the Pirates have started Donnie Ball. That would be Don Ball, meaning Don Kelly. And of course, I really just have no time. In many ways, I have no time to get into it, but we're going to get into that as well. Because at the end of the day, it's one of those things where I feel like it's one of those things where it's new. I get it. We're feeling good about it. People are excited. He's the guy, all that other stuff. But the reality is they're still playing the same kind of baseball that they were playing. I don't know that it's going to be that much different. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Speaking of things, I've been looking all day. If you remember somebody, I forget who it was, but somebody basically said the Steelers are going to make an incredible announcement today. Huge announcement today. We're not sure what it is, but there's going to be a huge announcement by the Steelers. And I guess they can cover themselves a little bit by saying, well, we met the schedule being released, and we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the reality is I don't know that there has been an announcement. At least I haven't seen anything. And so since I haven't seen anything, I've got to basically come to the conclusion that there's not going to be an announcement today. And if there's not going to be an announcement today, then, I guess it's one of those things where what are we doing? At any rate, I am going to start a little bit here about talking about Will Howard. Much like the Donnie Ball stuff, I think the Will Howard stuff has gotten a little ridiculous as well, too. To me, it's one of those things where Will Howard is a guy who was drafted where he was drafted. And I did this exercise before, but I'll do it again. There's a lot of people that, insist that the Steelers somehow got to steal the draft. They've got the guy that everybody is going to want, the guy that's going to be the next Ben Roethlisberger. All of this stuff is just wishful thinking. It really is. And what I mean by that is you're kidding yourselves if you really are going to sit here and believe that Will Howard is that guy. Maybe he will become that guy, but before we say that he is or that whatever, let's just say this. Okay? Let's just say this. Go through the entire league, okay? And when I say, go through the entire league, I'm just telling you, I go through the entire league, try and figure out how many guys were picked in the 6th round that are starting for their teams. Okay? Let's go. Are you ready? AFC East. The Bills, Dolphins, Jets, and Patriots all have something in common. Their starting quarterback is a first-round draft choice. It is. Josh Allen, Tua, Justin Fields, and Drake May, all first-round picks. So, to me, it's one of those things where it's important to note that all of these guys, when you look at them and where they were picked and everything else, they were picked early. They were guys that were picked, at the top of the draft. Maybe not 1 through 5 or 1 through 10, but the reality is they were guys that were picked high in the draft. All right, let's go through the Steelers. Lamar Jackson, first-round pick. Burrow, first-round pick. Kenny Pickett, first-round pick. I mean, that's the guys that are slated to start for the Browns. And I guess, if you want Tommy Gabriel or Sanders as the guy this year, well, then maybe I'll listen. But the reality is they're all first-round picks so far. C.J. Stroud, first-round pick. Trevor Lawrence, first-round pick. Cam Ward, first-round pick. I mean, those are the guys. Those are the guys that are all the starting quarterbacks in the league. Where was Anthony Richardson? I think he was like a second-round pick, right? If he was whatever he was. No, he was picked fourth overall. Never mind, another first-round pick. So basically, we go through the whole list. And the only reason I'm doing this exercise is because there's this situation of where we are, looking at guys, and I keep hearing people say that first round picks are not a problem. I mean, first round picks and second round picks, they're overrated. Quarterbacks, blah, blah, blah. They don't evaluate them well, yada, yada. I just went through, okay, so now let's go. Mahomes, first-round pick. Herbert, first-round pick. Bo Nix, I think when was he picked? Bo Nix, I think, was a first-round pick, wasn't he? The kid from the Broncos. He was a first-round pick, I'm pretty sure. Let me look at that. But, I mean, the reality is if you keep looking at all these guys, he was first-rounder. So there's another one. And I guess the Raiders, I don't know. I don't even know who is their starting quarterback right now. I mean, you look at their depth chart. Oh, wait, they've got Geno Smith. He wasn't a first-round pick, but I think he was like a second or third-round pick, wasn't he? So, I mean, I think if you look at it, I mean, he was drafted a long time ago. He was a second-round pick. So we went through the entire AFC. And unless, you want to count one of the Browns guys that, isn't named Kenny Pickett, all of the starting quarterbacks in the AFC are first-round picks. And, of course, if the Steelers were to sign Aaron Rodgers, that would be another first-round pick. But you either got first or second-round picks pretty much up and down the board. Jalen Hurts was a second-round pick. Jaden Daniels was a first-round pick. Russell Wilson was a first-round pick. You look at Dak Prescott. Let's see. He might not have been actually a first-round pick, but I think he was a higher pick. I don't think he was like a guy that slid, right? Let's see. He was a fourth-rounder. So there you have it. There's one example of somebody that was drafted outside of the first three rounds that is a starting quarterback that might actually, if you want to make the argument for Will Howard and why, we should have all this optimism that people seem to have, okay, maybe I'll go with you there. But again, he was a fourth rounder, not a sixth rounder. And that's important to note as well. There's a pretty big difference between those two things. I could go on and on and on. I think I've already proven my point in this exercise. Jared Goff was a first-round pick. J.J. McCarthy, I think, was a first-round pick, wasn't he? The kid from Michigan. I think he was a first-round pick. It's one of those things where we're at, if you look at it from that standpoint. I mean, we could go on, and I just feel like, there's no reason to. The point I'm trying to make is people that want, this thing with Will Howard, I get it, We're all looking for a diamond in the rough. It's just one of those things. hang on. It's one of those things where I just feel like if you think about it, it's a pipe dream. It really is. That Will Howard is going to become the guy. It really is. Brock Purdy was a 7th rounder. There we go. That is, if you want to tell me that Brock Purdy, and I hadn't even gotten to the NFC West, but if you want to tell me Brock Purdy, but again, we talk about Brock Purdy because he's the exception, not the rule. Kyler Murray, Sam Darnold, Stafford. I don't even know who the Saints quarterback is anymore right now. I know Derek Carr just retired. Carolina Panthers obviously have first overall pick. I mean, so to me, I'm just saying when you really get down to this whole discussion, if you want to tell me that you think that Will Howard has a chance to be a starter for the Steelers down the road, okay, I'll listen to that. You want to tell me you think he's got a chance to be a good player, a good starter for the Steelers, I'll listen to that too. But we've got to stop with this idea that somehow they outsmarted everybody when they got Kirk Cousins. We've got to do better than that. Because I'm not Kirk Cousins, Will Howard. He reminds me of Kirk Cousins. How about that? But I think that's really, to me, one of the things that probably frustrates me more than anything. We haven't even seen the guy play yet. And I think that, if that's the case, let's let him develop. And let's see how good he is. And let's see how good. Let's see how good he is, and let's see really if he's a guy that's capable of playing. I mean, he's got some of the measurables. I think that's the biggest thing. I think that he's a guy who's, he's got decent size. And I think that he's got some things that you look at and say, well, I feel like he moves reasonably well, for instance. Maybe there's a little Big Ben with him, there. He throws the ball on the run a little bit. He's got some good size, 6'4", decent arm. And of course, something that is hilarious that we always talk about, thanks to the last time a first round draft choice was picked here, a quarterback, but his hand size is big enough. And so if you look at it, but I think one of the biggest things is, he's a winner. He's a tough guy. There's no question about it. He moves reasonably well. In the biggest games when they needed him to be the best, he was that guy. He's just one of those guys that if you think about it, he's probably going to will his way into being a better quarterback than probably his physical attributes are. The couple things that to me give me a lot of pause. Number one, his release, it's not fast. It's not very quick. And in the NFL, that's a problem. You have to be able to get rid of the ball. He doesn't have a quick release. I think the other thing is he doesn't really have a top end like arm. He doesn't really have arm strength like you really would want. He's a guy who probably is going to be sort of a game manager at best, I think, basically by looking at some of the things that probably are his weaknesses. I don't think people really understand how important that the measurables are. The immeasurables, the intangibles. I think Will Howard is off the charts. He's tough. He's a winner. He's a gritty guy. When the chips were down, I hate that cliche, but when they needed him to be that guy, you know what? He was that guy. And I think that that's always important. I just don't think that, people need to go as far overboard as they have with this whole thing about him. Because to me, he's got probably a long way to go. Now, maybe again, he works his way into, becoming a reasonably good NFL quarterback, but he's got some things to overcome. And I think that's the toughest thing when you when you look at it, that's the toughest thing, really. It's just you if you don't have a big arm, if you don't have that quick release, it's really difficult to be good playing quarterback in the NFL. It really is. And I think that's where he's at right now. I think that's where he's at. So, the hype is always big for a new quarterback and all that other stuff. But to me, I think when you look at it, you also have to be realistic based on what his attributes are. And I think his attributes probably aren't good enough. Physically, mentally, the it factor, whatever you want to talk about, I think he's good enough. But at the end of the day, I don't think he's good enough with his, his arm strength being what it is and everything else. Someone actually made it really good right here. It is a great college quarterback that doesn't necessarily translate to the NFL. But again, like I said, I hear all these people all the time talking about how the NFL, you know what, they don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks and look at all the first-round misses and all that other stuff. But the reality is the guys that are getting drafted in the first round and the second round are generally going to be the guys that are going to become your starters because they're good enough to be your starters. That's the thing. They're good enough to be your starters. And I think if you look at a lot of these guys, and in fact, let's do this. Let's go, who are the 10 best quarterbacks in the league? Right? Off the top of my head, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Burrow. I don't think there's any question. Those probably are the 4 best right now. Then you look at some guys, maybe a guy like C.J. Stroud in that category in the top 10, maybe. Trevor Lawrence, maybe, right? Jalen Hurts is probably somewhere in the top 10, even though I don't know that he's a great, passer. He's obviously a guy that you can win with. He's a great leader. He's got, great physical tools. There's 6 right there. Jalen Hurts is a second-round pick. The other 5 are all first-round picks. Herbert's probably somewhere in the top 10. And after that, you put Goff or Stafford in there? I don't know. Both of them are first-round picks, by the way. I'm just looking at the list, and as I look at it, I say pretty much all of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL, unless you consider Brock Purdy one of them, pretty much all of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL are first-round picks, except for Jalen Hurts, who's a third-round pick, or a second-round pick. Hurts is a second-round pick. So that's what I would tell you, where it comes from, right? And I feel like it's going to be interesting to see where he's at and where they're at and all the other stuff. But I feel like it's going to be really, really interesting to see Will Howard develop. But by the same token, I think, Mason Rudolph was a third-round pick. That's it. He was a third-round pick. And I think that, honestly, if you look at him coming out of college, he's there's probably more reason to believe that he's your guy than Will Howard, based on his college career and how he threw the ball and all that other stuff, right? I would say that. I don't know. That's just me, though, really. Is Will Howard even going to be as good as Mason Rudolph? And I think Mason Rudolph probably has a little bit better of an arm in some ways than Will Howard does. So it's going to be interesting. Now on to some things with respect to the Steelers' schedule. I know there's some leaks that are out there. There's some different things about it. The 4th week of the season, they play the Vikings, and they're going to play them in Dublin. Of course, this is the game that they play because, Dan Rooney was the ambassador to Ireland and he wanted this game. And, this is sort of a tribute to him. It's going to be interesting to see if this game is, if this game is, going to be something that throws the Steelers off or the Vikings off, because I feel like going, obviously we travel a lot differently now. They travel in chartered planes and all that stuff, so it's not nearly as bad or big of a deal. But the time difference can be something. I'd love to know if there was going to be if there's a study onto what happens to teams, when they go to London, in their next game, even if they get the next week off, in their next game, what happens? I mean, I think that's going to be, to me, I think that is always going to be very interesting. But the Vikings are an interesting team in so many ways. It's just one of those things where I just look at the Vikings as a team that is kind of a wild card, because I don't know that we know how good their quarterback is. And when I say that, I mean that in all sincerity. If their quarterback is good enough, then I think that the Vikings have a real legitimate shot to be a very, very good team again. But he's not a rookie. But he's kind of a rookie, right? J.J. McCarthy. I'll be interested to see what he does and how he does it. Because if he's good enough, the Vikings could be a really tough game for the Steelers. And they could be a team, because remember, they did win 12 games or 13 games or whatever it was last year. Of course, near the end of the season, Sam Darnold woke up and realized he was Sam Darnold, and that was a big problem for them. But really, if you think about it, it's important, to note that is a big wild card for them. And if you think about it, because I think honestly, it's one of those things where I feel like, at least I do, that J.J. McCarthy is a guy who probably is going to be better than people think. He spent his years at Michigan, but I think one of the things is he spent his years at Michigan and handing the ball off and playing Jim Harbaugh football. And, they ran the ball a lot. They ran with power. They handed it off a lot. I get all that stuff. By the same token, I think when they needed him to throw, he was pretty good. So it's now important to see how he develops. But we'll get a chance to see him in week 4. The schedule's going to be released at 8 o'clock. I've said already, where the Christmas Day games are out, the Thanksgiving Day games are out, all this kind of stuff. I mean, really, if you think about it, it's one of those things where I look at it and say, why even have a schedule release party? Why even have a scheduled release party at 8 o'clock tonight and have it on TV, okay, when the reality is most of the games are already out. Most of the games are out already. Most people seem to know. So I think that's really what it is. You know what I mean? We've got an argument going on here. So this guy here says that Mr. Steeler fan says Mike Tomlin has drafted 3 Hall of Famers in the last 15 years. I would love to know who are the 3 Hall of Famers that he's drafted. Now we've got to look into this. Who are the 3 Hall of Famers that Mike Tomlin has drafted over the course of the last 15 years? That's what we need to figure out, right? Who they are, because I have a feeling I know who they are, and I would tell you that I think you could be very, very disappointed. It's going to be really interesting to see here. Here we go. Okay. Hall of Famers over the last 15 years. So that goes back to 2010, right? Well, let's even go back to his first overall draft. His first overall draft, Lawrence Timmons, probably not a Hall of Famer. Lamar Woodley, probably not a Hall of Famer. Okay, the rest of this group, definitely not Hall of Famers. All right, let's go to the next one. Mendenhall, Swede, that Bruce Davis, that is a disaster of a draft. No Hall of Famers there. 2009, Ziggy Hood, Urbic, Mike Wallace, Keenan Lewis, blah, blah, blah. A.Q. Shipley, no Hall of Famers there. Okay, I think this is where we might get one. Marquise Pouncey. Is he a Hall of Famer? Marquise Pouncey probably is a Hall of Famer. I mean, I would say he's probably going to get it. He's considered one of the great centers of all time. Played for some Super Bowl teams, all that other good stuff. You want to tell me that Pouncey's a Hall of Famer? Okay, I might listen. He's not there yet, but we'll see. He might get there. The other guy in that draft, obviously, Antonio Brown. I think he's a Hall of Fame player who will probably have a very hard time getting elected to the Hall of Fame. Cam Hayward, I guess, is the other guy we're talking about now. I think Hayward is going to be a guy who's a borderline Hall of Famer. I don't know that he gets all the way in. Same thing with DeCastro. I mean, these are really, really good players. I just don't know if they're ever going to be Hall of Famers. Le'Veon Bell is not a Hall of Famer. He had a chance to be, and he just sidelined his career. He's not a Hall of Famer. Ryan Shazier maybe was on the road to being one, but he's not going to be one. Looking at this draft, no. And then obviously these guys are no. So basically you're talking about, I'm assuming the argument is Hayward, Pouncey, DeCastro, Antonio Brown. And I think that maybe one of those guys might get it. So he could be a Hall of Famer. He could be a Hall of Famer. Again, DeCastro and Pouncey, maybe, probably. Oh, that's right, Watt. I guess we're going to talk about Watt. But Antonio Brown, I would be very careful because, again, they have to vote for him. And I just don't know if guys are going to vote for him. I really don't. I think there's going to be a lot of guys that hold it against him the way that he acted and the way that it ended for him. Period. And I just think that's going to be, the problem for him. But the reality is he has had a few really good players that he drafted. I would argue he has a lot of misses as well. And so I'm not sure what we're doing here. Let's move on. Game's always on at Archie's. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. Archie's, home of Archie. Obviously, when you get down there, say hello to Archie for me. Again, 80-cent wings Monday through Thursday, home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. Now let's talk about your Buccos. The Buccos have basically really not been very good. Obviously, they lost 7 in a row, fired Derek Shelton, and since they fired Derek Shelton, now they're 2-2. I'm getting a kick out of people who are using the term Donnie Ball or whatever you want to call it. And I'm getting a kick out of it, really, in so many ways. Because at the end of the day, I don't see much difference in how the Pirates are playing now than with Shelton. They're stealing some bases. They're hitting and running. They're being a little aggressive on the base pass. Guess what? They were doing that with Shelton, too. They just weren't very good at it. And for all the talk about, Donnie Ball changing the course of everything else, I mean, they're still struggling to score runs. The lineup still stinks. And you know what? Last night they pulled off again Paul Skeen's start. They lost. None of it is good. None of it. None of it is good. And that, to me, is a problem. So, when we look at, Donnie Ball, could we stop? Could we get like 50 games in before we start talking about what kind of an impact he may or may not have had already? Because I think when you look at it from that standpoint, honestly, you have to be realistic with what exactly you're doing. And the Pirates, to me, you've got to again win the Paul Skeens starts, and then find a way to win some of the other games. And if you ask me, that's what you do. And so I feel like, when we talk about it, it's got to be just more realistic than it is. And I think that the discussions are just kind of dumb. The other thing we can talk about, and I think this is an important thing, I really look at it like this. It's probably time for the Pirates. It's probably time for the Pirates to talk about unloading a bunch of guys and unloading them in a way that you basically now are going to legitimately rebuild. I mean, to me, Reynolds got to go. Mitch Keller's got to go. Anybody that's on a multi-year deal that's not somebody you really view as part of your future, they got to go. Got to get rid of them. Strip it all down again. And that includes the general manager, unfortunately. You know what? He's got to go too. Period. And I think that's where we, probably the Steelers need, or the Pirates need to be. They need to go. They need to clean house. So, to me, I don't care if Donnie Ball, influences them in a way where, wow, they're going to win a couple extra games that they wouldn't have won with him. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is, okay, you've now admitted that this whole experiment with Sherrington and Shelton has failed. You've now admitted that. Now that you've admitted that, it's time to go do something. Strip it all down, blow it all up. People will listen to it if you bring in a new general manager and you have a new approach to things, and I think that's always going to be the issue. I'm off the rest of the week. I'll talk to you on Monday.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video